Chapter 6. Emma. Mr. Lambchop came home early the next afternoon, full of excitement. "Guess what?" he said. "The old Merker department store downtown, remember? 8 floors all emptied out, waiting to be torn down. Well, last night, most of it fell down by itself." He switched on the TV. "News time! Let's get the latest." "More on the Merker building collapse," a newscaster was saying. "It's just a mountain of rubble now, folks. 3 workmen have been treated for minor bruises, but no other injuries are reported. The public is requested to avoid the area until—" A young woman ran on, handed him a slip of paper, and ran off again. "Hold on! This just in," the newscaster read from the slip. "Wow, a little girl is trapped under all the wreckage. Emma Weeks, daughter of local businessman Oswald Weeks." "Emma Weeks!" exclaimed Stanley. "She's in my class. No wonder she wasn't at school today." "Emma's not hurt, it appears," the newscaster continued. "Firemen called to the scene can hear her calling up through the chinks of the wreckage, demanding food and water. But Fire Chief Johnson has forbidden any rescue efforts. Any disturbance, any shifting of the wreckage, he says, might bring the rest of the building crashing down. Now, here's Tom Miller." The TV screen showed a reporter with a microphone standing by the wrecked building. "Emma Weeks!" shouted the reporter, holding his microphone to a crack. "Do you hear me? Are you all right?" Emma's voice was faint but clear. "Oh, sure, I'm great. I just hope a building falls on me every day, Ha ha ha. Come on, get me out of here," she said. Mrs. Lambchop sighed. Such an unfortunate one. She's under great strain, of course. And half an hour later, while Mrs. Lambchop was preparing supper, a siren sounded outside and then died away. Opening the front door, Mr. Lambchop saw a fire department car at the curb. On the doorstep stood Fire Chief Johnson and a very worried-looking man and woman. "Mr. Lambchop?" asked Chief Johnson. "I'll get right to the point, sir. I reckon you heard about little Emma Weeks trapped in the Merker wreck? Well, Mr. and Mrs. Weeks here and me would like a word with you folks." "Oh, of course." Mr. Lambchop led the visitors into the house and introduced them to his family. "Oh, Mrs. Weeks," Lambchop cried, "your poor daughter. You must be dreadfully worried." "We are indeed," said Mr. Weeks. "But Chief Johnson thinks that your Stanley here might be able to save Emma." "Who, me? And who, Stanley?" said Stanley and Arthur. Chief Johnson explained. "Problem is that if a policeman and any fireman tries to dig his way into Emma, the whole rest of the building would crash down on them. Too bad we don't have a flat fireman, I was thinking. Flat fella could squeeze through all those narrow openings we know are there, 'cause we hear Emma when she calls." Then I recollected the newspaper story with a picture of Stanley here. It hit me right away. That boy can maybe save Emma. For a moment, everyone was silent. Then Mrs. Lambchop shook her head. "It sounds terribly dangerous," she said. "I'm sorry, I must say no." "It is a tad risky, ma'am," said Chief Johnson, "but we've got to remember the boy is already flat." Mrs. Weeks sobbed. "Oh, poor Emma. How are we to save her?" Mrs. Lambchop bit her lip. Stanley remembered something. "I was just thinking." He turned to Mr. Lambchop. "The other night, when I got mad about all the crazy things that kept happening to me, remember what you said? You said that sometimes things happen that nobody can see a reason for. And then afterwards, some other things happen. And all of a sudden, it seems like the first thing had a reason after all. Well, I was thinking that me getting flat again was one crazy thing. And maybe Emma getting stuck there, where I'm the only one who can try to save her. Maybe that might be the second thing." Mr. Lambchop nodded and took Mrs. Lambchop's hand. "We should be very proud of your son, Harriet." Mrs. Lambchop thought for a moment. "Stanley," she said, Will you be very careful not to let that enormous building fall on you? Okay, sure, Stanley said. Mrs. Lambchop turned to Mr. and Mrs. Weeks. We will allow Stanley to help, she said. He will do his best for Emma. Fine boy you got there, brave as a lion, shouted Chief Johnson. Now listen up, folks. Mrs. Lambchop, you help me get things ready. Then Stanley can go right in after Emma. You got that? Everybody meet us at the Merker Building, 30 minutes from now. And that's the end of the chapter.